You're listening to Neurodiversity at Work.
My homie told me that when people rise up against you, what's the sign of your destiny real? Fake ones been hating cause they know that one day you're making it. Jealousy's all they can feel. Plugging the phone, drifting my zone. Pain in the future when thinking alone. About when I'm grown, already blown. How'd I get blessed with this beautiful home? You were the sight, beautiful life. Beautiful sex with my husband and wife. Beautiful children, people who want to come kill me because I'm expressing my rights. Kill me because I'm expressing my rights. Kill me because I'm expressing my rights.
Today's episode is sponsored by Udder. Udder is a HR tech consulting, advisory and services business. Their mission is to improve the HR tech industry for everyone. They work with vendors to help them build products that solve real-world problems, and they work with buyers to help them make better purchasing decisions. They are also advocates for neurodiversity at work. Today I'm joined by Joe Franklin on the podcast. You've only got to look in the news to see that Joe is in every news channel possible. How many people do you know that have sold a 65,000 pair of trainers? And that's just the start of it. Joe is a highly entrepreneurial young man at the beginning of his career. Employers, if you want to know what you're missing by not hiring people who are neurodiverse, listen in. Hey Joe, welcome to the podcast. Really pleased to have you on. Joe, I wanted to introduce you to my audience who may or may not be aware of the incredible work you've been doing. Would you just like to introduce yourself and let them know who you are?
Yes, so I'm Joseph Franklin, I'm 17 and I currently run a private guest list trainer store out of a really cool music media company based in Shoreditch.
Wow. So they may not have no idea what that's about, but just to kind of tease them, the reason why I'm speaking to you is because I listen to the radio, BBC, and I read the newspapers and what have you. And you were in there. You were in the BBC News. And I thought your story was incredible. And we won't go on to, neurodiversity that I normally start with. What I want to know is you tell us what was in that article and briefly how it came about. And just, let people know around the incredible work that you're currently doing.
Yeah, so it kind of came about, I have a friend I work closely with that knows someone at the BBC. And he said to me, Joe, I'm not being funny, BBC, I think they'd really like to do a piece on you. Do you want me to mention it to them? I think it's something that would be of interest to them. So I was like, yeah, why not? It's great. It'd be great to be in the BBC. And what's the worst they say? No, right? So he spoke to them and they actually really wanted to do a piece on me. So I got connected on email to one of the journalists over there. So we did the interview and it was great and told them all the information. They were saying I made 5 to 20 grand a week, classic press, that was my turnover, funnily enough. But they want to get a juicier story, which is understandable. But what was crazy is how all these other big names were just jumping on it, like CNBC, The Mirror, The Sun, Vice, ITV, the Evening Standard tonight, which will be great. So it was really quite amazing and humbling to see that all of these big names really thought that the story was great. Otherwise, they wouldn't have run it, if you see what I'm saying. So that was quite humbling for me. So, yeah.
That's interesting, Joe, because you say humbling. I'd say they're lucky to have the opportunity to share that story because it's an incredible story. I mean, just tell people exactly what it is you do and when it started. Allow people to really appreciate what you've achieved.
So it all kind of started when I was in school. I had no interest in education, buying and selling trainers throughout my whole schooling life, trying to do like little deals, £50 deals, £100 deals, just to make a little bit of money. And it kind of got bigger and bigger as, time went on. As I went through school, I was making more money, which means I could spend more money to make more money. As I left school, I went to college. And as it happens, I know someone at a music media company, like I said, called Kiki. And they got in contact with me and said, look, we'd love you to come in here and set up a private guest list trainer store. We have loads of music artists, execs, DJs, all people in the industry come in, day out, and it will be really beneficial to both of us. Beneficial to us because it's a massive attraction point, because music and fashion goes hand in hand, and it's also really, really beneficial to you because you get to build your network. So it kind of all started a year ago. I dropped out of college because, sales were increasing by quite a bit and I couldn't fulfill the orders whilst being in college. I left college and I couldn't fulfill the orders, so I was doing more sales, which was great. And for me, it's all about kind of creating the black book for myself, contacts that I'll be able to use in the future years to come, which is obviously really important.
Wow. And so the thing that caught my eye, and they use this cleverly because it does catch your eye, is that you were able to sell, well, first of all, you were able to buy a pair of Nike trainers that were very expensive to start with, but then you sold them on for a lot of money. And a lot of people who listen to this podcast will probably remember where the trainers come from, and that's Back to the Future, which is those trainers that did themselves up. I mean, they were incredible. And basically, Nike created a pair of these, and you were able to acquire them and sell them on. But that's just one piece of the jigsaw puzzle that is kind of the entrepreneurial world that you live in, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that story was crazy. It's not every day you get to sell a trainer for £60,000. It kind of came about. I have a client in Dubai who got in contact with me and said, "Look, I want to buy these trainers. I know you're the go-to guy. Can you get them for me?" So I had to take a step back when he actually said, "I want a pair of these 2016 Auto Lace Max." Nike released this pair, and there's 89 pairs that were released, and they were all auctioned off by Nike, and all the proceeds went to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which is, a really nice touch by Nike. So as it happened, I knew someone in LA who is a massive Back to the Future collector, not just the trainers. He has all the merchandise and all the bits and pieces. I got in contact with him and I said, "Look, I need to buy your trainers. Would you be willing to sell them?" And I knew that this was going to be tricky because to these big collectors, it means a lot more having the trainer than just cash, if that makes sense. So thankfully, we were able to agree upon a deal, and I was able to make the sale to my client, and he was, over the moon. And yeah, that was definitely one of the biggest achievements and biggest sales that I've ever made.
Brilliant. But Joe, so the reality is you're 17, and I think we talk a lot on this podcast about organizations making a difference to employees, and we talk about people who are already in pretty high-profile jobs, recruitment directors, HR directors, diversity and inclusion leaders, who are neurodiverse or who are making an impact with neurodiversity. So I think it's important for us to come back down a few levels, and the reality is you're 17. Now, when I was 17 and I'd left school, I was completely disconnected, disenfranchised. I didn't get school. It didn't make sense to me, and I came out with as good as no qualifications. And so, I can assume that the education system is now failing people like myself, but I don't know that because I'm 40. So it's been a long while since I've been in the education system. I have now kids who are going into that, and I can see through that lens what's going on. But how do you feel about it? And tell us a little bit around, now we come to the point, what neurodiversity means to you.
For me, coming up in school, so my younger years, so when I was maybe 10, 11, 12, I was like, why have I got to be dyslexic? Why me? Why have I got to find it hard? And I kind of felt, what's the word? I was not annoyed with myself. I was confused, why is everyone else doing really well and I'm here who just doesn't get it, right? And as years came on and I started the trainer business, I kind of felt really appreciative to the fact that I was dyslexic and had processing difficulties, because I found out that I had skills in other sectors, right? So I clocked onto the fact that I'm good at buying and selling. I've got that business mind. I don't like to say that because I'm only 17. So it's hard for me to say that I've got a good business mind because I'm only 17. But I did realize that I had other skill sets that people that just were really academic and just fly through school don't have. So that's where I felt quite appreciative of being dyslexic, because I had these other skill sets. But for me personally, the whole education system is really biased towards these really clever standard kids that are getting B's, C's, and A's and A stars. It's a tough one, really, because, like I said, it's biased, and they accommodate for the kids who are going to do really well and want to go into uni and want to go on and get a great job. But for the dyslexic kids, it kind of leaves us in a really confusing situation. We're confused at ourselves because we don't understand education because we know we're dyslexic, but we don't know why we're dyslexic. So it's kind of really figuring out what I'm good at and how I can use dyslexic to better myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that kind of resonates with me. It makes sense to me that you feel inferior in certain aspects. And I think you used the clever kids, are supported. But actually, I think it's the kids who appreciate being taught in that way. And I think that's why people like you and I will then feel like we're not clever in that environment. And it's because that's the way we're made to feel. But clearly you're clever because you've been able to go and achieve what you've been able to achieve without the support of others necessarily, without the structure in place to help you achieve that. And when you say you're young and therefore you don't want to say you've got a good business mind, a good business mind can be at any age, right? At the end of the day, you're able to translate your skills into something that can pay you a wage. And as a entrepreneur independently, where you're just accountable to yourself, which again, these things you mentioned, I knew somebody here and I knew somebody there and I spoke to them. These are part of networking skills, right? Which are often common within people with dyslexia. They can communicate really well, and actually they can be quite empathetic and really connect with people on a level that others can't connect with people. And then people want to help you. So people have been willing to step forwards and help you achieve what you've achieved, but you ultimately have had to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, I can go up to someone and have a conversation with them, introduce myself and talk about my business and, like you said, build my network. And I've got friends that are going to get 10 A stars. You go up to them and say, "Hi, I'm Zach, what's your name?" They get confused by that, so they just don't have those sets of skills that maybe a dyslexic candidate has.
Yeah, of course it does. And you need a balance. And I think that's what that's what we talk about a lot on this show. It's, if you've got people within a team, you don't want all of the same people. You want certain people who can think creatively, who can communicate really well, have that kind of entrepreneurial mind to see outside of the box that the organizations try and put people in. So what if you're looking to, I don't know, talk to organizations, maybe HR leaders, business leaders, and you're going to try and tell them what they should be thinking about when they're trying to attract great people like you? I mean, you'll probably work for yourself now for the rest of your life and go on to do incredible things, and people will probably work for you. But not every person who's neurodiverse at your age is going to get that opportunity, would have got to where you are now already. What do you think you would tell employers to think about if they're seeing people who've already left school, who may not have qualifications, but have something about them?
As it happens, I spoke to someone about this a few days ago. I don't think a job interview and hiring someone should be done on qualifications, right? I think you should give the employer that's requesting a job, give them 2 weeks of work experience. Give them a month of work experience, right? Pay them, the average salary, so it's not like they feel like they're doing all of this work for nothing, But I feel like if you're going to give them an opportunity, give them work experience so they can really show you what they're about, what they can do. I think that would be a really, really fair opportunity, which is fair on both sides. I just feel like for a dyslexic person that really struggled through school and struggled to get qualifications and going to job interviews and these employers asking for, their CVs, what's your qualifications? What school did you go to? And someone who's got neurodiversity turning around and saying, I'm dyslexic, I didn't find school I really struggled through school, but I have these other skills. The employer should give, the opportunity to the potential employee a chance to really prove himself as being as good as he could be, because an employer doesn't know, the potential of someone he could be employing without giving them the opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I was speaking to a charity in the UK just the other night, and they were saying exactly that they're working really hard now to get employers to try and do exactly what you've just said, which is to look at individuals and then give them the opportunity just to come in and spend some time with them in a variety of different ways. And you're right, sometimes it's just that 2 weeks to come in and give it a go.
Absolutely, absolutely. Although I do think it depends on the job role as well. You know, if you want to go and be a doctor and you want to be a neurosurgeon, yes, you have to have qualifications. I understand that. But a creative role in the music industry, right? You've got to be a really creative guy. I don't feel that you need to have a great degree at uni to be able to work at a music company. For example, myself, I'm actually in progress of making a music app myself and trying to start up this company. And I was speaking to someone about employees and stuff like that. And I said, don't know how you're going to do it, but personally, I'm going to try and change the game. You know, I want to employ someone because of their skill sets, not off of a piece of paper with results. So that's me personally, yeah.
So what does the future look like for you, Joe, then? You mentioned the app, there's the trainer business that clearly has give you access to some incredible people and made you some money. What are you going to be doing next, Joe?
So obviously I'm looking to expand Supplied with, some really creative ideas. In London, there's loads of sneaker shops. I don't just want to be another sneaker shop in London. I'm thinking of some really creative ways, and in the process of doing that, which could be really interesting, could be really great for the business. I'm also, like I said, working on a music media streaming company as of now, which I actually can't talk much about, but it's looking quite promising, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds within that.
Amazing. And what advice would you give to other young people, probably in your situation, that maybe coming out of school, maybe feel kind of disconnected from academia, not knowing what to do?
It's a good question, because I was in that place before I had the trainers. I'd say you've just got to, like, a don't give up attitude, Go out there, go and try and meet people, Be confident within yourself, because neurodiversity people, we have an amazing set of skills that other people don't have, right? We've got skills that can benefit us and can be really, really powerful. It's kind of finding the balance, right? It's kind of finding your niche in your life, if that makes sense. So you've got to go out, I'd say network. I know it can be hard, coming just dropping out of school and going out and networking, speak to people, also doing some work experience. I think doing maybe work experience for 5 or so companies and seeing what you like and don't like can also be really beneficial. And that will also help identify what you're good at, what you're not good at, your strengths.
Yeah, good advice. I think so we use a kind of a term around special interests within neurodiversity, and not everybody has them to the same extent. But one thing, I find with my ADHD is that sometimes I struggle to focus. And other times I can hyper focus. If I have something that's a special interest of mine, then I could spend days and weeks on it. You struggle to interrupt me. People might find they'd better not disrupt me whilst I'm doing it. And I think there's lots of examples of this, of people who are neurodiverse, who, if they can focus on that special interest, they just accelerate, they go. And this can benefit organizations. But for young people, and I think you've done this incredibly, Joe, and this has now give you a platform, which is you found this special interest. It happened to be trainers. I think you mentioned it was at first to impress others, but really it worked for you, and you found something that was your niche, and you just went at it. And I think basically what you've described there around finding that interest, and it can be through work experience. And it can just be through giving stuff a go. But I think you have the best opportunity when you're a young person in your shoes.
Absolutely. As in, like you just said, you'll find what you're good at, and you'll progress with it. You'll know exactly when it is and what it is. Like you said, with when you find something that you're interested in, you can't be disturbed. I'm exactly the same. When I was in class, I couldn't care less what was going on in maths, English. When I found out that I had a passion for trainers and I liked buying and selling trainers, that really got me in the zone, Like, you will not see me now when I'm not on my phone trying to make a deal, trying to do deals. And I can really relate to what you said with when you're in the zone, there's no getting out of the zone when you find an interest you like. And I think that goes for people that don't know what they want to do when they come out of school or college. And when you do find what you like, you'll know straight away, and you'll kind of become hooked onto it.
So, Joe, I mean, we talk about the trainer selling piece, and I think people might underestimate the level that you've gone to with that. They only have to go on to, where would they find it? Instagram and other social channels to see who you're selling those trainers to and at what level, which is brilliant. So I think it's 5upplied. Is that right? Is that where they can find you across social media?
So it's supplied, but instead of an S, it's a 5.
Brilliant. And they possibly will end up bumping into, grime artists or...
Yeah, who knows? Exactly. If you're a regular client, you never know who you'll be meeting at my store. You never, ever know. It's a mystery. It's a big mystery.
Incredible. Listen, Joe, I think what you've been doing is brilliant. Clearly, you're going to go on and do some amazing things. Watch this space. This is so early on in your career. BBC were lucky to just capture you at this moment. I'm certainly excited to see what you go and achieve. I think you've set a very high benchmark for yourself already, which is good, right?
It's fantastic. It's brilliant, because I always want to better myself. I've never done enough, and I never will do enough. So I think that's a really good drive for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think plenty of organisations listening to this can see the benefit of hiring somebody like you. I mean, I don't think they'll ever be lucky enough to hire somebody like you, because you'll be controlling your own world. But there'll be plenty of other people out there. I think that they should be tapping into.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Joe. And if people want to hear more about what you're doing and see what you're up to, they can probably follow any national news program or even international news program and spot you somewhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of press at the moment, which has been great. But definitely, if anyone wants to get in contact with me, go through my Instagram or my email, which is suppliedbusiness with a 5 instead of an S @gmail.com.
Absolute pleasure, Joe. And I wish you all the best in the world. Great to have you on.
Thank you very much, Theo. Thank you.
You've been listening to Neurodiversity at Work, available on all good podcast hosts. Please do sign up now, like, share and comment. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Today's episode is sponsored by Udder. Udder is a HR tech consulting, advisory and services business. Their mission is to improve the HR tech industry for everyone. They work with vendors to help them build products that solve real-world problems, and they work with buyers to help them make better purchasing decisions. They are also advocates for neurodiversity at work.